Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. For those of you new here, my name is Donna, and for those of you not new, thank you so much for continuing to come back and support my channel. I appreciate all of you so very much. Today I am doing another palette roulette video. This is number 107, and this is a video series on my channel in which I go over a palette every single week that an app chooses for me. I come back to you, talk to you about the palette, I explain to you my experiences with the palette, show you some pictures and some swatches. Today's palette that we are going over is the Morphe Such a Gem or 39S palette. This is an artistry palette by this brand. So this palette is $35 and it has 2.67 ounces of product inside of it. It is one of those giant Morphe palettes. It has a 4.9 star rating on the Morphe website, and it has a 4.6 star rating on the Ulta website. The Morphe site does have 767 reviews on it, but there are a total of 7 reviews that are less than 3 stars. The Ulta website has 171 reviews and a 4.6 star rating. I would say that 4.6 stars is probably fair for this palette. I would not say that it is a 4.9 star palette. Like I said, this is the 39S, so this is what the front of the palette looks like. It just is the typical black Morphe packaging. It is cardboard, and then on the back it does say that this is an artistry palette. It has the little sticker on here signifying which artistry palette it is, which is 39S, and then gives you some information about the palette. It does say that it has a 12-month shelf life. This palette, when you open it up, it's got a really good magnet on it, just so you know. I did tape this guy up here. I do believe I said that in the last video that I was going to, I think, tape this up here. So it is taped so that as I'm looking at it, I can read what these shadows are, so I don't have to keep flipping it up and down and around and whatnot. Kind of tacky, I know, but I did it. So this is what this palette looks like, and you guys, like, I really do love the color story of this palette. It is just so beautiful. It's got these beautiful like pinks and rose and cranberry tones, and it's got an array of beautiful purples. It is super vibrant, but it also has some neutrals in here, so you can get a really nice comfortable eye look or work appropriate eye look for those of you that require that in a palette. This is definitely going to give you that pop of color of pink and purple, or the color that you want to have as the pop of color on your lid. This is going to give it to you. I would say though that you can also get some really amazing work appropriate looks out of this as well. This is, like I said, a palette full of rich and vibrant hues of pinks and purples and silvers and browns. This whole middle row is a new formula to Morphe. It is called their Silk Slip Toppers. It reminds me a lot of a Super Shock shadow, only maybe not as wet. So it is a cream to matte formula, but you can tell that it's got a different kind of formula because when you push in it, like, you can see your fingerprints when you push into it. I don't know, can you guys see those? So yeah, it is a different formula than what Morphe had done previous to this palette, but it is a beautiful formula. I really do like them. You just go in with the tenderest of touch though, because otherwise you're going to find yourself sinking clear down to the pan and hitting pan first time through. There are 39 shades in this palette. This is a giant mammoth of a palette. I can hide my face behind it. It is a giant mammoth of a palette. 39 shades in here, and we do have 7 different finishes. So we have matte, sheen, sheer shimmers, silk slip toppers, glitters, regular shimmers, I think that's it. I think that was the 7 that I had. I think that that is an astronomical amount of different finishes in a palette, but I really did enjoy a lot of the finishes in this palette. It was launched in 2019. May 14th, I think, was the day it launched in 2019. I did pick it up not long after that. If I remember correctly, it was still on the front tables in Ulta when I did pick it up. It was one of those palettes that you walked in and you were like, I have to have it, and you pick it up. I will say I have better purples in my collection, but these aren't half bad. Again, Morphe is not a formula that I 100% stand behind, but it is typically an easier formula to approach, especially if you're new into makeup or not wanting to spend a whole lot of time trying to, you know, blend your shades together. This is a really good formula to deal with for that because they lend to easy blending. It is a largely cool tone palette, but it does have a lot of warmer tones in here as well. And I'm not going to swatch all 39 shades of these, you guys, for you, but I will go through some shades that I feel are, you know, standouts for one reason or another. So just to go through some of the finishes in this palette for you, and I will hopefully be able to pop a picture of some examples of these shades in the palette for you when we talk about it, or maybe point some out to you. We do have some mattes in this palette. You do have 13 mattes. So these, well, these 3 here are mattes, these 2 here are mattes. You have this matte here, this matte here, this one here, this one, and this one. This one is probably my favorite of the matte shades. It is just such a really pretty, like, burgundy red toned purple. It is in my eye look today. I love this shadow. It is so stark, so beautiful. Just a beautiful shade. I would say that the worst one in this palette for mattes is going to be this purple here. I do not have a lot of fun with this purple. As a matter of fact, I have an eye look that utilizes that purple, and I'm in the same clothes that I am in currently. And the reason why the eye look is different is because that eye look turned out like hot garbage, and I didn't like it at all. I really wanted this purple to work for me, but it just did not work. And one thing I will say too is that all of these shades swatch so well. So this is the purple that I really wanted to work for me, and this is it swatched out, so it looks beautiful, but on the eye it was so patchy, and I hope that you'll be able to see that in the pictures. It didn't want to blend, it didn't want to buff out. I even mixed this shade in with it, trying to get it into some kind of a way that I could make it look less patchy and buff it into the shade that I had on top, trying to like just kind of pull it all together, and it just wasn't doing it. So I would say this is my favorite matte, this is my least favorite matte, but for the most part all the mattes perform really well. They're very silky smooth to the touch, they're really kind of buttery in the pan, they're really very beautiful. I will start off by saying I did not get a chance to use every single shade in this palette, but I did use every single matte in this palette. So then you have sheer shimmers. So the sheer shimmers I really feel like should not have been in this palette. You have this full row here of toppers, so there really wasn't a reason to put sheer shimmers in because that's what these guys kind of did. But this one here, this one here, the other one is this one here. These are your 3 sheer shimmers. And you guys can see that these two, they really just don't perform very well at all. So this is the pewter shade up here at the top, and this is the, and see, I just went over the top of that pewter because I didn't even realize it was on my arm. So let's try that again. Perfect example of what I'm talking about here. We've got the pewter shade, and then you've got the lavender shade, and they just they don't really, there's not really any reason for them to be in this palette. They don't really add any kind of anything to the palette. And then you have, I accidentally wiped it off, the other one, which actually kind of lends a little bit of pigmentation. So I just don't understand why these two, this one here and this one here specifically, are in the palette, because they don't really lend anything to the palette. They don't give you any kind of pigmentation. They don't really, this one I had in that purple hot trash garbage eye look, and you really couldn't even tell that it was there. They just weren't my favorite. There was quite a bit of fallout with those ones, and they just didn't lend much to an eye look. They performed pretty poorly. You had to use your finger to get any kind of opacity from them, and even then it was just slight opacity, and you had to put so much on your eye look that it kind of began to look a little bit cakey. So they just weren't worth it, in my opinion. I really wish that pewter shade had been a little bit more opaque, because I really do think it had the potential to be beautiful. It is a really nice chrome, like dark antiqued chrome colored shadow with multicolor shimmer inside of it, and it was so pretty. It had the potential of being just an amazing shade, and I wanted to love it, but it just went on so poorly that I could not. Then you have the satins in this palette, and there's quite a few actual satins in here. These are going to give you like high shine but not shimmer. They're going to, you know, they're a matte with a little bit of sheeniness to it. It's going to give you some luster, give you a little bit of pizzazz to your eye look, and some of them are really pretty. This one here is probably my favorite, and it is called Flaunt It. You guys, look at how just beautiful that is. It is this shade right here in the palette, and it is just stunning. It's got a really nice sheeniness to it. It performs so well. It stays on your eyelid forever. I feel like it's just a really beautiful shade. So then you have your shimmers, which are your typical shimmers. They're going to be like really in your face, bright shimmers. My favorite is this one here, this one, and probably this one actually. This one is the only like brow bone shade that you can use. So we have the silver, yes, which is kind of like leans a little lavender. And then we have the white. Yes, you guys, they're just so pretty. And then we have glitters. You guys, the glitter in this palette is the you all know me. I do not typically dabble in pressed glitters. This pressed glitter, I have to hand it to Morphe, because this pressed glitter is probably the best pressed glitter that I've ever had to deal with, ever. This is what it looks like. This is what it looks like. Like, I can't even, it's not grippy. It doesn't feel like, you know, shards of glitter like you sometimes feel. I just, God, and it all just sticks together. It becomes this like glitter wall on your eye look, and I am wearing it today. Don't get me wrong, it does get everywhere, but I have to hand it to Morphe because they did a bang up job with this pressed glitter. It is beautiful, and I mean, it does, I don't know if you guys can tell, but it is all over my hand now. It does get everywhere. I'm not here to tell you it doesn't, but I just can't be bothered wearing glitter glue. I honestly hate slathering glitter glue all over my eyeball. So this is on my eye. I didn't put glitter glue on it at all, and this is the opacity that you get with it. It is all over my face, but I knew it was going to be because it's a damn glitter. I mean, what do you expect? But I do love that glitter. It's a beautiful glitter, and it goes on great, and I didn't have any problems getting it to stick to my eye. I didn't put a glitter glue on underneath it, and this is what it looks like, and it really is a beautiful glitter. I have to give props to Morphe. So then you have these shades here, these middle shades here. I am going to swatch these guys for you because I feel like it's important for you to see them. They do have a really different texture. Like I said, they kind of remind me of Super Shock shadows, but not. I feel like you could probably, these are 4 of them in there. I feel like you could probably use them on your cheeks also as highlights, but I would say that they do kind of, they are a wee bit chunky. So if you have like problems with texture, then this is probably not a great option for a highlight on your face. So in no particular order, because I swatched these wonky, or I pulled them wonky anyways. So this one is Catch the Light. So here's the thing. I've got these 4 colors on my fingers right now. It goes this one, then this one, then this one, then this one, because I swatched it stupid. But so I've got Catch the Light right there. It's beautiful. It looks wet. It's so, so pretty. Then I have the pink one here called Strike a Pose. Then we've got the more like pinky lavender one called Here for It. It's kind of like duochrome-y. It's got like this pink purple shift to it. And then that one there, which is called Bling Thing. Now I'm going from here over. The last 3. These are the last 3, which are actually the first 3 in the palette. I'm so sorry about the confusion. So we have this one, which is called Take the Crown. It is a beautiful silver. It was in that purple eye look that I did all over from the inner portion of the eye look to like halfway over. Then we have Oh Yes. And it is that beautiful like pink. And then we have Total Goals. And it is a really pretty purple. These are the ones that kind of remind me of a Super Shock shadow. They look wet, but they're not nearly as wet. And they definitely are a cream to matte formula. I do think that these 2 shades up here didn't both have to be in the palette, because on the eye they look very, very similar. And then these 2 shades down here also, same, maybe didn't both have to be in the palette. They are beautiful nonetheless. One of my other favorite shades in this palette is this one here. It is called Shiny Object. And this is what it looks like. It's kind of like a blue toned silver. That is it. So pretty. And in the pan, it looks very, very blue. On your eye, depending on what you pair it with, it looks pretty blue. Like with the purples, it looks pretty blue. But with the gray tones in the palette, it looks very silver. I found that many of the mattes performed super, super well, but there were a select few that I really wanted to perform a lot better than they did. I have heard, I don't know for a fact, but I have heard purples are significantly harder to formulate than any other shade in a color range for eyeshadows. I do know that Morphe's purples aren't my favorite purples. Like, I have palettes in my collection that have purples that are phenomenal purples. Morphe's aren't them. They just aren't. But this palette is not bad overall. The sheer shimmers, like I said, they're pretty pointless. There's only one way to approach them in an eye look, and that's to put them on with your finger and know that they're going to be a topper. They can't really perform as a shadow in this palette. I really didn't feel like they needed to be in here, honestly. With the whole middle row being full of beautiful shadows that carry an impact for those to be just so ho-hum and for those to be just not as great as they could have been. They shouldn't have been in the palette at all, in my opinion. The shimmers are super beautiful, but the more metallic they got, the more fallout this palette had. Another thing that I would say is its downfall, and this is pretty categorically true for me in my experience with Morphe, is they didn't last very long on the eye. But I felt like these ones lasted a little bit less than what I have experienced before with Morphe. I showed fading in almost every eye look at that 5-hour mark. I need an eyeshadow to last a lot longer than 5 hours on me. So that was pretty disappointing. Even with the primer, they only lasted about an hour longer before I saw significant fading. And you know how I typically will fall asleep with an eye look on during the week. Somehow it just happens. Like, I'm not putting on face makeup anymore because when I go into a store and have to put on a mask, I don't like wearing face makeup anymore. And I'm really happy with my skin, so it doesn't bother me to be without foundation and primer and everything else that you put on your face. But because of that, not my skincare routine necessarily, but the fact that I wash my face every single night has kind of fallen off of my radar because I'm not wearing makeup like I used to. So I sometimes fall asleep on the couch with my eye makeup on. This shadow is not a shadow that can last through that. I know that I have fallen asleep and left shadows on my face multiple times and come back to you and said, yeah, I fell asleep on the couch again. My makeup looked just as good as it did when I fell asleep. That is not the case with this shadow. I don't necessarily think that that's a downfall of the shadow. That's a downfall of me for not washing my face, but it's just funny to me how you notice those things about other palettes and then wake up and notice it completely different for this one. Even with the primer on, this makeup doesn't last very long whatsoever. I didn't really notice any kind of staining from the shadows per se. Some of the darker ones, so like these two, this one here and this one here, I think took me a little more time to get off of my eye, but not staining. It just took me another round of eye makeup remover to really get the color, the pigmentation off my eye in total. I would say also that some of these shades really liked to not necessarily pick up any color that I was trying to blend them with, but didn't want to play well with the others in the palette. And I found that to be true more so of the mattes than any of the other shadows in here. These shimmers you can pack on over the top of anything. The satins or the sheens work really, really good with each other or on their own. The mattes kind of were hit and miss for me. Like I said, there were plenty that performed quite well, but there were also plenty that performed pretty poorly. And when you're dealing with a palette that only has 13 mattes in it total out of 39 shades, that's not very many mattes, number one, and number two, they should perform pretty decently. All of them perform better with a primer than they didn't. I did experience a minimal amount of fallout except for with the more metallic of the shades, and the wear time was dismal at best. The black in this palette I was pretty unimpressed with, and the fact that it is packed full of shimmer also kind of, you know, y'all know how I feel about mattes with shimmer in them. Ridiculous. Stupidest invention ever. But it's also not a phenomenal black. It's really a really shitty black, actually. It does really well to help deepen up like an outer corner, help deepen up an eye look, sure. But it still boils down to it's a shitty black with a ass ton of glitter in it. It is ridiculous how much glitter is in that matte. What I will say though is that because this palette has so many browns and, you know, light toned pinks and really light toned purples and like deeper like burgundies and stuff like that along this row, like it is a pretty versatile palette. I don't see any reason why anybody couldn't pick this up and get so many eye looks out of it. This is my second eye look for today. I know that there were a couple of times that I did just a 1 or 2 shadow eye look with this, and a couple of times I didn't really get crazy with this palette. I like it. It's going to stay in my collection, but honestly, it's a palette that is this big, and it doesn't house my favorite purples and reds and pinks. So I don't know how much usage I'll get out of it, but I do love that center section of shades. I think that they are stunning, and I think that I could easily see myself pulling for this. Those shades really are the saving grace for this palette in my collection, because I really did enjoy them. I think that they are stunning, and the rest of them, they're just not my favorite purples and browns and reds. But this palette is gorgeous. With that being said, it is 2 o'clock in the morning, so I feel like that was the shortest review for one of the biggest palettes in my collection, so I'm just kind of going through everything else. But I think I got it all. I think it maybe seems short because I didn't swatch all of them, but I just can't swatch 39 shades. My video would be 8 years long. Alright, so for those of you who are unaware, I do have a Samsung Note 9. I do pick a palette using the Decide Now app that I got on my Play Store through the Android system. I do know that they have these very same kind of apps through the iOS system, and I know that because the girl I pull inspiration from had an Apple phone, used an iOS system, and had the same kind of app. I did put all of my palettes into this wheel when we first started this series, and as we utilize them through Palette Roulette, I do pull them out. As I declutter them, I do pull them out, and as we get new ones that I've hauled in with you guys, I do put the new ones into the wheel. So this is my wheel, and to spin it, we just press the blue button in the middle, and I am gonna do that. So the palette that we got this time is the Sigma Enchanted palette. I picked this up before I picked up the Untamed palette, but I've used the Untamed palette and haven't used this one yet. So I'm actually kind of excited that this is my palette this week. So I'm going to go pull that and I will be right back. All right, this is the Sigma Enchanted palette. And then this is what the palette looks like. And I am so excited to try these shadows. I feel like it's kind of got like a little bit of grungy vibe going on down here and a little bit of fairy vibe going on down here. So I'm kind of excited to use it. I hope that you guys are excited to see the looks that I come up with next week in my palette roulette going over this palette. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. I hope that December is treating you well and you're enjoying everything thus far. I hope that you enjoyed this video enough that you're considering giving it a big thumbs up. It really does help our channels out here. It's totally free to do. And what it does is it tells YouTube that people like the videos that we're putting out here, and maybe they will be inclined to push my video out to other people. It really does help us grow. I really hope that you also liked it enough that you're considering subscribing to my channel before you go. Again, totally free to do. I would love to have you guys here as part of my crazy life, my crazy midlife crisis, and my most amazing YouTube fam. I hope that this month is treating you well. I hope that December has been amazing for you so far. I hope if you work retail that you're taking your time to just breathe, because God knows, I know I have to. I hope that you guys are well and that your families are well and that you are taking mental health in stride and making sure that you're taking care of yourself. I hope that you guys are all wearing your masks when you're out in public. Y'all, we are never going to get out of this if people don't start wearing their masks, and it's just frightening to me how many people I see walking around out there not giving a care in the world, not wearing a mask. Please keep your family safe. Please make sure that you guys are wearing your mask when you're out there. I also hope that you guys are loving each other, but loving each other from afar, and that you're enjoying Vlogmas. And until next time, guys, bye.